Hey guys, Argent here at the Reactionary review of Wind River. So I just got out of the theater. Someone mentioned with my War for the Planet of the Apes review that I sounded a little more high energy, and it was kind of interesting to just kind of see what was happening while I was walking around. So I figured let's do another one. It's another kind of no effort movie review, that kind of thing. So the movie I saw was Wind River with Jeremy Renner, and Jeremy Renner actually acted for once, which is kind of bizarre. I've always been a Jeremy Renner fan because in general he just looks like every movie he's in, it looks like he's phoning it in. Like he's just like, here, where's my paycheck? I really don't want to be here. He just looks like he's about to yawn and go to sleep. Like, and he said, like, I'm glad there's not going to be a Hawkeye movie because I don't want to, it would be like too much work. But no, he was good in this movie. So, Wind River follows, they find it takes place out in an Indian reservation, Wyoming, and they find an Indian woman dead in the snow with her feet frozen. Apparently she had ran a couple, I think it was 6 miles. She ran 6 miles before the air in her lungs froze and burst, and yeah, she died coughing up blood. So they bring in what's her name, a FBI agent played by, I think her name's Elizabeth Olsen, the youngest of the Olsen sisters. She's Scarlet Witch in the Avengers, which is kind of weird seeing seeing her and Jeremy Renner, aka Hawkeye, in the same movie together. But yeah, so they send her to investigate, and we start to like try to get them introducing based alt TV. That is, yeah, it's the only type of TV I'm gonna buy. But yeah, so they show up and then they start investigating it. And I think it was a movie that really dealt with the whole issue of race and reservations and Indians very well. It didn't really take necessarily a pro or anti-Indian or a pro or anti-white position per se. I think it was more just kind of an it is what it is movie. Because on one hand, there is a lot of bitterness expressed about the position that they've been reduced to, and to be fair, reservations are pretty shitty and the whole situation is just not good. On the other hand, there's a number of scenes in the movie where there's an admittance that a lot of the misery is self-imposed. A lot of it is due to bad decisions and bad behavior. Like, there's part of a movie where they go to they're trying to investigate the girl's brother. So they go and they talk to the girl's brother, and he's in a crack house with a bunch of other Indians, and they attack the police and the FBI agent with guns, because that's going to work out well. So they attack her, and then Jeremy Renner like talks to the guy, and the guy's like, oh, I'd like to be anywhere but here. And then Jeremy Renner's like, you've had every opportunity in life. You could have moved out. You could have gone to college on a scholarship. You chose not to. You chose to stay here and be a crackhead. Don't complain to me where your choices led you. And that's kind of a something that's kind of reiterated throughout the movie. Is as kind of bad as the situation is, and as bad as kind of the life conditions are, in a lot of cases it's the bad life choices and the unwillingness to kind of do anything about the situation. So I just wanted to say that, because even though the villains of this movie are white, it's not as if it's just saying, oh, it's the white man coming in and he's the cause of all of our problems. And again, it's just the way the plot is structured, it makes sense. So anyways, there's a bunch of investigation. Jeremy Renner's character hunts predators. He mainly hunts like mountain lions, wolves, coyotes, stuff that eats the local crops. He works for the Department of the Interior, I guess. I'm not sure exactly who he works for, but yeah. So he gets on board and he starts helping the FBI agent out because he's a tracker. And eventually what it comes down to is they find out that the Indian girl had a boyfriend who was a security guard on one of the oil rigs. Now her boyfriend was a pemmican pounder, and Jeremy Renner's also a pemmican pounder. He's also a cuck because he had 2 children. Would they be Hapa? Because they are half Asian. They're half North American Asian, but... Okay, so he has 2 Hapa children, and one of them died in a similar manner. Some, like, drunken Indian killed her. So... his wife left him over that, and she wants to move to the city and get a job, but she's like, I can't afford to live in the city, so you're gonna have to give me more child support. And he's like, okay, I'll give you whatever money you need so that you can move to the city and live a better life. So, like, he has to pay her money to get a job. I don't know, nothing about it makes any sense. He's just kind of a cuck, but his pemmican pounding marriage didn't work out. Who would have thought? And yes, I'm trademarking that term. We've got oil driller, we've got rice farmer, and now we have corn husker, I guess, and now we have pemmican pounder. But anyways, I digress. Enough with my slurs and my... That's kind of cool. If not tomorrow. But enough of my my hate, as it were. So yeah, so they find out it's so her boyfriend and her are having sex, and then the rest of the security guys come back drunk, and they beat the crap out of the boyfriend, and they take turns raping her. And then she, as her boyfriend distracts them with his death, she runs out into the snow and dies after running away from him. So the FBI agent figures this out, and she goes with the other police, and the other police go to the Indian reservation, go to the oil site, and it just degenerates into this all-out shootout, which was pretty cool because it's very realistic. And they succeed in killing all the security guards but one. However, all the cops but the FBI agent die. Probably because she's the QT. And death to those who are mean to QTs. So one of them gets away, who was kind of the guy who instigated the whole thing, and Jeremy Renner takes him up to the highest, to a mountain, and he's like, okay, there's 6 kilometers away, there's a highway. If you make it there, you're gonna survive. So the guy makes it about 600 feet before his lungs burst in the same way as the girl. And then he goes back to her father and basically says that he's been avenged. And the film ends with the 2 of them watching the highway. So, was it a good movie? It was a pretty good movie. I guess 7.5 out of 10. It's not really my kind of film per se, in the sense it was just a bit slow. I kind of probably would have cut like 10 to 15 minutes off of it. Some people really like films like this just because there's a lot of scenery. Speaking of scenery, there's a lot of scenery and stuff to look at, and there's a lot of movies like that. The American is another one that comes to mind. The Revenant. They're films that kind of seem to be made more out of because somebody wanted to go there for a vacation. Actually, Woody Allen said that. He said, when I want to go on a vacation, I make a movie there so I don't have to pay, which is a very Shlomo way of looking at it. But yeah, so the movies are more there to kind of show off the natural beauty of the environment than really to do anything else. So what was I thinking of again? So that kind of brings us to the meat of what I wanted to talk about now that I've rambled on for like 10 minutes. Kind of the core issue of the movie, Native Americans, what do we do about them? Now, I know I've been making some jokes about it, but frankly, as far as the whole thing goes, of course it's League of Legends. League of Legends is everywhere. But, XXX Blowout. Okay, we got We got some good degeneracy. What was I thinking of again? Right, so the whole issue of Native Americans, Indians, whatever you want to call them, of all the minority groups who live in Canada and America and the New World in general, they're the only ones I have, I guess, to a certain extent along with American blacks, that I have actual sympathy for. Because it's not like, they're not like China economy strong. They're not like the snack bars. It's not like they had a choice to come here. They came here as like an invasion to displace us. There is some truth, and I know it's going to be cringe, that we kind of came here to displace them. I mean, there's truth to that. But yeah, you know how the whole thing goes. Black countries for blacks, Asian countries for Asians, white countries for everybody. They don't really have a country for themselves. So in a sense, they're kind of like us. They don't have anywhere else they can go. It's not like we can deport them or kick them out. It's not like they're Syrian refugees from Nigeria that we can just send back to Nigeria. I mean, they're kind of here, and it is kind of our responsibility to deal with them and to kind of find a lasting solution. Because we did kind of put them in this place, and we can't do the whole woe to the conquered. We don't have any responsibility, fuck them. And I can kind of understand that, but at the same time, it's not a situation they created per se. And I'm not trying to say that, people will probably take this the wrong way. I'm just trying to say that I have more sympathy. I have more sympathy for them than I do anybody else. I used to have a bit more sympathy for American blacks because much like it wasn't really their decision to come here, but that's kind of run out over time, just with the amount of gives me that and just kind of the way they behave in general. But that's another story. Plus there are black countries that they could go swing in the trees. But yeah, so I don't know what needs to be done or what can be done regarding the natives. At this point, we can't really deport them and send them anywhere. It's just like in Canada, there's a couple different issues. There's the Idle No More movement, which is basically, we want more gives me that. There's the movement that is, we have to, which the right tends to favor, which is, we shut down the reservation system, we move them into cities, and we try to integrate them more. Speaking of the failures of integration, yeah, we send them to cities, we try to integrate them more. Kind of what they were trying to do in early America, where they thought they could just breed them out of existence. So that's one solution. And that would probably work. I find North American Amerindian blood is fairly recessive, and it tends to get bred out pretty quick. I mean, after like a generation or two, normally a quarter on, they tend to look pretty white. So I mean, that was feasible. It's getting less feasible because their birth rate's really high. Oh boy, look at that. XXX blowout. I want to go there. But anyways, yeah. So I mean, that's a solution the right tends to offer in Canada. And they of course do it from a virtually signaling perspective that native reservations, because they have an ethnic requirement, are racist, and they're a form of ethnic nationalism. So that's kind of what the right will often, because the right and the left are the same. The right just fully buys the Kool-Aid that the left sells. You can see why I'm depressed just living here. Just the various species of Pokemon I come across. A lot of Jinxes, not too many Chikoritas though, fortunately. Not yet at any rate. So what was I saying? Right, so there's that solution, there's the gives me that solution, which is like we want more money, we want more jobs, And we've kind of tried that. Some of the wealthiest reservations in Canada are the shittiest. Like, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of the Appawattascat thing. But in essence, what happened is the water system in this native reservation up in northern Canada broke down, and it was entirely blamed on the federal government for not funding it properly. But when you started to look into it, you found out that there was a diamond company who had a mine nearby, and the diamond company gave them huge amounts of money. They had bought a new water system for them a couple years ago, and they just between funding, direct funding, giving them jobs, other various donations in the water system, it turned out the company was giving everybody like 60 or 70 grand a year on top of whatever they got from the federal government. So you would have this scenario of like people living in shacks with like 50-inch plasma screen TVs and like $50,000 trucks. In fact, one of them was so wealthy that they flipped over their $50,000 truck and they didn't bother to pull it out of the snow ditch. But they still would live in shacks without plumbing, full of mold. So it's like high time preference. The money doesn't matter. It's what happens when you have people who are super high time preference. You could give them any amount of money. You could give them any amount of money. You could do pretty much anything, and it's not going to help. Yep, that's how it always goes. Always the lighter the hair, the harder they farm. What was I thinking about again? Right, I was talking about reservations. So giving them money doesn't help. Integration would end the problem, but it would destroy their culture. And I mean, however you feel about them, like all people, they have a right to preserve and advance their culture and their people. So is that really ethical? Is that really moral? That when we're yelling for our own homeland and our own continued existence, that they face the same, they have the same problems, that we're basically going to force them to do it. But I guess people say, well, Argent, they're not white, you don't have to care about them. Yeah, but they are kind of our responsibility. I mean, I don't like it either. I wish things were different and this wasn't our problem, but it kind of is our problem. So how would I resolve the situation? I think what you need to do is you need to cut off the gives as much as possible. I mean, you're gonna have to keep some so people don't starve, and you're just gonna have to give autonomy, complete autonomy to these communities, maybe even recognize them as sovereign nations or like protectorates or something. But basically completely decentralize them, get the Canadian government out as much as possible, and try to teach, to let the people step up. Stop hovering them over them like Big Daddy government. Ooh, the Zanzibar Club. Welcome to the XXX. Enjoy the ride. I'm going to enjoy that ride right after I'm done this. Oh yeah, I'm going to enjoy that ride. So where was I? Oh right, I was talking about the the reservation system and what to do about it. I think they should, as much as possible, remove the federal government's involvement with it. I think at this point in time it's just an abject failure by any stretch of the imagination, and it's just, I don't think something that can be allowed to continue. So dismantle the reservation system and give as much autonomy as possible. Reduce funding to a bare minimum, and yeah, just give them a lot of autonomy. There's a lot of things they could do if they became de facto independent states. They could set themselves up as tax shelters. Indian casinos tend to work out pretty well. They could produce, I guess, lower, I don't know, like, they do produce cigarettes and booze at lower rates because it's not taxed there. So I mean, they could do that. They could have companies set up businesses there, like manufacturing, service industry, anything that could take advantage of lower taxes and lower labor laws. So they could, I think, if we gave them full autonomy, start to kind of do that. Trying to think what else. Also, we should encourage them to kind of form their own government. There's someone with a rice rocket. If you don't know what a rice rocket is, it's when a member of the people of the rice gets a souped up car and just drives around with it. Gingers are always the worst, if you were wondering. But yeah, so give the maximum that. Try to encourage them to like get the chiefs together, form kind of some kind of confederal government. And if we as like Canada have to cede some more territory, just to make so the reservations make geographical sense. If they're like lacking in certain basic resources like water or power generation, then yeah, I don't see an issue with ceding a bit more territory so that they're more viable. Yeah, I guess viable is the now what was I thinking about again? Oh right, yeah, so encourage so make the reservations more self-sufficient. If that means expand them, if that means provide for the development of, wow, it's a normal looking white couple, for certain infrastructure, that kind of thing, then yeah, it's I think that's probably better. And in the long run, just try to give them the impression that they aren't Canadian, they aren't American, they aren't whatever their tribe is. That's their ethnic identity, that's their nation, and they have to stop thinking of themselves as being second-class citizens of our country, but as first-class citizens in a second-class statelet. But I don't know. I'm sure that they can come up with something to make it better. Like I said, Indian casinos tend to work out okay. I mean, sure, it's kind of sleazy, but they're at least making money, and they can use that money to solve a lot of their financial and social problems and promote their culture. So I mean, that all sounds good to me. Plus, people are working for a living. If you have a society where no one works, then that gets pretty bad pretty quick. People get bored if they're not working and they don't have purpose in life. And when they're bored and they don't have purpose, they tend to go to drugs, whoring, violence, general forms of degeneracy. So, like I said, I think what we need is we need to give power back to the native peoples. We have to encourage them to reclaim their identity, and we need to give them the tools to make that happen by getting out of their way and giving them the power to run themselves and not intervening. Now, is this likely to result in a completed total disaster? Yeah, and that's probably going to happen in a lot of cases, but it's a disaster now anyways. Regardless of how much money we pump in, it's a fucking mess. So I think you have to let them just fail on their own, and then they won't be able to blame Whitey anymore. Then they'll have to take a hard look at themselves and say, look, Whitey's getting out of the way. Our failures now were a result of what we did. I mean, these people have an identity that precedes us. Precedes us coming here. They just need to find it again. They need to find that identity, and they need to latch onto it, and they need to make that their purpose. I mean, and we talk about this all the time. We talk about how much better and how much stronger it's made us in our lives to be proud of being white, or English, or French, or whatever Western country or combination of Western countries gave birth to you. How we're proud of that. How once we stopped identifying as a citizen of the world or a based civic nationalist, it made us a better person. It made us a stronger person. It gave us a meaning to our lives, and there's a lot of civic nationalism around me at the moment. But I want that for them too, because I think they can regain that. I think we have to stop treating them like children, get out of the way, and just push them forward and say, go at it, guys. We'll support you, but it's not working. It's not working for us. It's not working for you. All it's leading to is just more bad feelings. And we can just go our separate ways. We're going to kind of have to live in the same general landmass. But as much as possible, we should just be separate and preserve our own people and our own cultures and work towards the good of our people and those people and their cultures. I don't know, that makes sense. That seems just to me. It seems like that's in line with the good of the whole human person. So that's the reactionary view. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll talk to you guys later.